everyone, it's Julie from That's So Jewels. Today we're going to be learning how to make this beautiful new pattern by Rosa. This is called the Luna, and the details on this and the shape are just stunning. I am obsessed. I wanted to start by showing you the size. So this is the shoulder strap length. You can also make it in a crossbody length. It's got some beautiful, unique straps. The way they're connected, I've never seen anything like this before. It's just so high-end and unique. It's got a stunning shape, which is where the name originated from, Luna. It's got that same shape on the back here. And then the top is a zipper closure. And open her up. And this has a slip pocket as well as a zipper pocket. I also love the detail of the bottom. I think that's so pretty. This is an intermediate bag pattern. However, I do believe a beginner could get through it if you take your time, go slow, and let me guide you through every step of the way here. I sew on a domestic vintage Singer, and I will show you all my tips and tricks of how I got through some of the more difficult challenges on this pattern. My hardware for this bag I got on moremino.com. The exterior faux leather is from Emmeline Bags. This is the grape Mora. This beautiful interior is a canvas that I got from Mary Beth Made It. This is going on pre-order in February. And the stunning zipper tape. This is almost like a rainbowy white. I got this from Country Cow Designs. Regarding the interfacing of this bag, you do need a woven interfacing of some kind for all of your cotton pieces. And for stabilizer, this bag requires Decaville Heavy or Decaville 526. If you don't have heavy, you can use 2 layers of Decaville Light, and it should be pretty comparable in thickness, but you do need that structure to get the finished look here. If you have any questions or any comments at all, be sure to leave them in the comments below. I love to read through them. I'm so grateful for all my followers and all the support in the bag making community. I hope you enjoyed making this bag and that I can help you in some way or another. Let's get started.
I like to share that vintage dream.
We're going to start by going over this overlay piece and how to draw this pattern. You're going to trace it and see that you have these 2 straight lines at the top edge, and you're going to want to flip your pattern piece upside down and connect it to those straight lines, and then retrace around that piece again. And when it's finished, it should look just like this. You'll notice with your liner overlay that the middle circle is actually your slip pocket piece. For pattern pieces, we should have 2 overlay pieces. Your exterior will have Decaville Heavy on the back, and then your lining should have a woven interfacing. You'll have 2 side connectors, your strap keepers, the lower connector, and your strap. Cut it as crossbody or shoulder length. You'll have 2 main panels and an exterior gusset piece. For your lining, you'll have your slip pocket, the 2 main panels, your 2 zipper pocket panels, the zipper overlay, and your gusset piece. And for hardware, you'll have a 7-inch and a 15-inch zipper, your 2 zipper pulls, 2 strap ends, a zipper end, some rivets, 2 D-rings or rectangle rings, and 2 strap adjusters. We're going to start by preparing our straps. Let's find the center of each strap. So this strap is 3 inches in width, so I'm going to draw a center line of 1.5 inches. So depending on the width of each strap, you will mark your center line all the way down. Then we're going to lay some double-sided sticky tape right along that line that we just drew. Now let's peel our tape off, and we're going to fold our straps towards that center line on both ends, so the raw edges will meet in the middle. And this is what it should look like when you're done. Now we're just going to fold that in half and clip it all the way down the length of the strap. Now, the two straps we are not folding that last time is the strap keeper and the lower connector. So the rest should be folded and clipped. And we are going to stitch these on either long edge. We are top stitching these at 1/8 inch and back stitching at the beginning and end. And we're top stitching every strap except for the lower connector. And this is what we should have. Again, this lower connector piece was not top stitched, but the rest were. We're then going to start working on our overlays. We're going to take our exterior overlay and clip about every 3/8 of an inch within that oval center. We're going to keep it about 1/8 of an inch away from the Decaville Heavy, and we're going to clip this way all the way around that inner center. Now we're going to add some double-sided sticky tape right around this Decaville Heavy portion, keeping it about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And this is what it should look like after you have that applied. Now we're going to peel that off and fold over the clipped edges so that they wrap nicely around that edge of the Decaville Heavy. It should lay fairly easy for you and stick with the tape. This is what it should look like once those are all folded down. Should look nice and pretty on the front. To help those edges not lift, we're going to clip all the way around that inner circle again, just to give it some extra support. Now that we have all those in place, we're going to work on our interior overlay. We're going to be drawing a 1/2 inch and a 1 1/8 inch line around this middle circle. So the way I'm going to do that is by drawing some little dots just at a 1/2 inch around that entire circle. And it should look like this at this point. Now we're just going to connect all those dots together, and it should give us an even line around that inner circle. This is what we're left with here. We're going to do the exact same thing, but do it at 1 1/8 inch, and then connect those dots, and then we should have 2 lines at the end. And there we have it. So now we're going to clip, similar to how we did with the exterior overlay. We're going to be clipping right up to that first line, and then we're going to add our tape right on the inside of the second line. So right here is where we want to stick our tape, on that inner portion towards the hole in the center, and we're going to put that all the way around. Now we're just going to peel that off and do the same thing we did with the exterior. Fold over those little snips, and we're going to align these ones to that second line and just stick it down onto the tape. Okay, and this is what it should look like at this point. We're going to do one more row of this double-sided sticky tape. I know it's a lot of tape, but it really helps put this bag together. So we're going to put this right over those snips that we folded down, and we are not going to peel this tape off just yet. You'll notice these marks from when you drew your pattern piece, and those are the center marks. We're going to be attaching the interior and exterior together. So to do that, we're going to put right sides together and line up those center marks. Once you get those lined up, just add a little clip. We're going to do the same thing on the other side, and then we will just clip all the way around that outside edge, and that will be what we stitch next. So we're just going to go over to the machine and stitch right around here. This will be sewn at 3/8 an inch, and be sure to backstitch at the beginning and end. Now we're going to trim that seam allowance off at 1/8 of an inch. If you have pinking shears, the pattern does suggest to use those. It'll just help your curves lay a little flatter. Let's turn this right side out and just push everything out, make it smooth, and it should line up pretty nicely. This will be where we take that double-sided sticky tape off, and we use that to stick the lining to the exterior and help it just lay flat and stay together. You may need to tug and kind of pull a little bit to get it to lay flush, but just take your time and you will get there. I also added some clips all the way around just to secure it a little further. We're going to fold it in half just temporarily here trying to find center lines on that top part. So I'm just going to use my chalk pen here and draw a line on both sides. Now we can remove those clips and open it back up. We're going to be measuring from either side of the line we just drew, 3 inches in both directions. You want to mark it on the outside of the overlay, but also on that inside. So I just kind of lined up my ruler. It doesn't have to be exact, but this is what we're going to be stitching next. We're going to be sewing from one line to the other on both of these marks that we just made. Instead of back stitching, we're going to be doing things a little differently. We're going to pull the thread tails for the bobbin and your needle, pull long threads before we start sewing, and do not back stitch. We're going to end up tying these off so that there's no back stitch lines at all, and it's a beautiful clean top stitch. Remember, we're just starting and stopping at those lines that we drew. When you do get to that second line, you're going to want to again pull those thread tails long and do not backstitch. Repeat this step on all the lines that we just drew. Now we're going to want something pokey. You can use a stiletto or a needle, something that you can get through your threads really easily. This is a seam ripper I got from Mary Beth Made It, and it works perfectly for this. I'm just going through and I'm pulling the thread tails that were in the front towards the back. And I'm going to repeat this on all of those stitches that we just made, pulling that front thread to the back. Once that's finished, we're not going to tie these off quite yet. We're just going to clip these out of the way for now. Now we're going to grab our main panels, and we're going to be using some Scotch tape for this step. We're just going to measure them 2 inches apart and tape them down to your grid cutting mat. we're going to be using these lines that we drew not too long ago. So we're going to apply some double-sided sticky tape to the lining side of the overlay, and then we're going to line up those lines that we drew with that middle line on the grid ruler, so 1 inch away from both main panels, and it should just line up beautifully for you. So as you can see, I'm lining up those lines with that center line on my board, and just do your best to make sure it is centered. Following that, we're going to stitch this to the main panel. So we're going to start where we left off with those stitches, stitch all the way around, and we're going to stop where we left the stitches. We're going to do it on both the upper and bottom portion, and again, we're going to leave our thread tails long, and we're not going to backstitch. This is what it should look like. You'll notice those thread tails on the right side. We're going to be pulling those through to the back again with our stiletto. Now that we have those pulled to the back, we're going to be working with these threads from earlier. What we're going to do is thread our needle and poke it through the hole right behind them. So now that I have it threaded on the needle, I'm just going to poke it right through that same hole that I just stitched through. And then you should be able to get all 4 threads on the back. Something that helps with the threading is to grab all your threads at once and then trim them the same size before you thread the needle. I was able to thread the needle quite a bit faster doing it that way. So the front should look nice and clean now with all the thread tails in the back. And now we're going to tie all these threads off. So I usually do 4 knots. You can do 3 or 4, and you're just going to go to each section, divide it into half so you have 2 threads on each end, and knot it up. When that's done, I just trim my threads to about 1 inch. And just grab your fray check and do a little dab on each of those knots that you just made. It'll just help it to not unravel and secure it down. Okay, we are done with the main panel, and it's looking good. And right now is a good time to add your label if you're going to do so. Separate your 15-inch zipper into 2 pieces and make one end of each side a 90-degree angle. So you can stitch this closed, hand sew it closed. I just use a little dab of glue and then clip it to dry, and that seems to be easiest for me. And just double check that they are even and that they both look like a 90-degree angle. The straight edge of your main panels, we're going to measure 1 3/4 inch on each end. The pattern, you can just clip your zipper on and baste it that way. I find it easiest with zippers, basically any zipper, is to use double-sided sticky tape. It just helps it stay in place exactly where I want it, and I don't have to worry about shifting. So I'm going to add some tape from my first drawn line across to the second. And now we're going to attach our zipper. So you're going to see there's the teeth side and then the raw edge side. We're going to put it raw edge towards the opening at the top and teeth side down towards the bottom. You're going to line up the 90-degree angle on your first mark and then either clip or tape it across. And you're going to want to kind of veer off at the end, and I will show you here in just a minute what that will look like. Be sure to pay attention on which direction you want your zipper to open. Okay, now they should both be attached, and we're going to go baste this on at 1/8 inch. Here's a close-up. So when you get to your second mark, you're going to veer it off just like so, and then you're going to stitch to that second mark. This is what it should look like when it's done. I kind of learned the hard way, which is why you see some back stitching there. So with my second side, I found it easiest to stitch, and then once I got closer to that second line, I picked up the tape and then moved it and made it even with the other side, and then stitched to the second mark, back stitching at the beginning and end. Now we're just going to clip those out of the way. Let's get our gusset put together next. Grab your lower connector, your gusset piece, exterior, and your 2 D-rings. And some more double-sided sticky tape. We're going to start by removing our clips and attaching a long piece of tape about 2 inches away from either end. Peel that tape off and let's slide the D-rings on each end. Fold it over so that it lays 1 1/4 inch down. We're going to add a little bit more double-sided tape just over those straps. Make sure they're about 5/8 to 3/4 inch from each end of the fold. Fold your gusset in half to find the center. I just used a chalk pen again and I drew a little line over that fold. Helps me know where to lay my grid ruler. So we're going to center that ruler, and after finding the center on the lower connector, we're going to lay that right across the ruler, stick that down, and be sure to measure each end afterwards and make sure they're approximately 1 3/4 inch, and then we're going to stitch that on. Look just like this. We're going to stitch a big rectangle around the entire thing at 1/8 inch. As I use a walking foot, I can't get quite as close to the hardware as some other feet, so I'm actually going to measure 1 inch down from the fold on both ends, and that will be as far as I stitch. We'll be doing the same thing where we leave our thread tails long and we don't backstitch, and then we will tie it off afterwards. If you were able to get your stitch line closer to your D-ring, you'll want to set your rivet 1/8 inch down from your stitch line. Because I wasn't able to get as close, I am setting my rivet at 1/2 inch down from the fold. Isn't that just so pretty? Let's get our exterior put together. So we are going to first start on each top corner and clip those. And we're just going to work our way around the entire gusset. And we are going to also add some staples to this. It's going to help it not shift or move while we sew this in place. So I put my staples in between every other clip, and this is what it looks like. Now we're going to go over to the machine and sew it at 3/8 inch seam allowance. Sure to backstitch at the beginning and end. Now I did try both ways on which direction to have my gusset lay, and I found this way to be more difficult. So instead of having your main panel facing up and your gusset underneath like this, try it the other direction with your gusset facing up, and you will see that when I attach the other end. And I just do a quick look over and make sure everything looks even. We're going to repeat these same steps on the other side. Here I tried with the gusset facing up, and it was just a lot easier to maneuver around, as I mentioned earlier. Your gusset should be attached to both sides at this point, so let's trim that seam allowance down. You're going to want to snip about an inch down from each top of the seam, and we're going to trim this down to 1/8 inch. Again, if you have pinking shears, you can use those for this step. Okay, so you should have these two little flaps on either end.